Excited today to be able to talk to Alex Bradshaw. Alex is let me get your title right, head of overseas business for Shimadzu Limited, and they oversee the beautiful world-renowned Sengan-En gardens. Is that right? You want to say hi, Alex?
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Um, Hi from Sengan-En here in Kagoshima.
Yeah, how's the weather in Kagoshima
It's
today?
a little bit cloudy today, actually. It's not as clear as I would have hoped because I was hoping to take some photos outside later on, but it's a
Oh,
little cast. But the volcano is not erupting today, thankfully. So
yeah. Oh my goodness. I have some pictures to show of the volcano erupting later. That was insane.
yeah.
But to give people an idea who haven't been to the gardens, let's
Mhm.
start with a short 30-second video
Okay.
to introduce the gardens. Let's see if I can bring that up. It's not playing. Oh, our first snafu of the talk so far. Okay, let's bring up a picture of the gardens. There we go. So
Okay.
that's on a day when it's not erupting.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just trying to find the right picture here. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So this is a view from the gardens overlooking the bay, and then you can see Sakurajima in the background as well.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a
so-
really straightforward view of the Sakurajima volcano, right?
yeah, I mean it's what's called a shakkeiteen, so it's like a borrowed scenery garden. So
Okay.
it borrows background elements of Sakurajima and incorporates them into the foreground of the garden.
Wow.
Um, so it's very unusual because not many gardens have like an active volcano as part of that.
Yeah, of course.
This is
Here's a
yeah,
picture of when the volcano was active. Let's see if I can bring that up. Can you see that?
hold on, just
Oh my
a bit
gosh,
of delay.
that's a big eruption. When was that? Maybe last year? I found that on
Uh,
your Facebook feed.
oh, it could have been last year then. Yeah, I mean, there was a fairly big one last year. Yeah, this is yeah. So this one's about 5,000 meters
Oh
up in the
wow.
air. Yeah. So this kind of eruption is kind of a bit unusual. It doesn't happen that often. The volcano itself erupts probably a couple of hundred times a year. When it's
Mm-hmm.
very active, it can be up to 1,000. Um, but I mean, generally, it's not a nuisance. I mean, the ash goes up in the air and then it blows out to sea, or it blows over to the Osima Peninsula. If we're unlucky, it blows over here onto the city, and you get some ash fall.
Yeah.
Everybody's so used to it, the locals don't even look at it when it erupts.
Wow.
Don't paint it. They're just like, oh, right, not again.
Really? Wow. So you don't feel the ground shake, like it's not an earthquake type?
Very rarely. I mean, even
Wow.
this eruption, this big one here, there was no shaking, no earthquake or anything like that. Sometimes, if the gas builds up inside, you get a bit of a pop, and the windows shake on the
Wow.
buildings. The sound. But even that's quite unusual, really. So
That's
yeah, we've
interesting.
learned.
I visited many years ago. It was calm.
Yeah.
And we went over to the island and walked around. Beautiful place. But I think it's like Mount Fuji. Looking at it maybe is
Mhm.
more impressive than being on it somehow.
Yeah. I mean, if you actually go there, it's good to go with like a local guide or someone like that who can explain why the rock formations are like that and the geological history behind it because it's very interesting. Obviously, if you just go and look at the lava fields, they've got that kind of lunar landscape kind of vibe to them, which is cool as well. But it helps to have some kind of background to that as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I grew up on Hawaii, so I'm
All
familiar
right.
with volcanoes.
Yeah, very familiar
feel
territory.
feel right at home.
Well, I grew up in Sheffield, so we don't really have many volcanoes
Oh
in
no, no volcanoes over there.
to be
Weird.
fair.
And you went to Leeds University, is that right?
Yeah, I went to Leeds University, studied economic and social history. So my key kind of area of study was the Industrial Revolution in Britain,
Oh wow.
and then I branched off into communist China towards the end for some reason. So kind of like the birth of the global economy and things like that. And during that kind of course, there was a little element about Japan, and that started with the assassination of Ii Naosuke and the kind of the fall of the Tokugawa shogunate, and then the creation of modern Japan And then it
Wow.
skipped all the way to like Zaibatsu and these big companies after World War II, which I found incredibly boring because I wanted to find out more about the samurai and things like that. But unfortunately, we skipped right past that. It does have a connection with what I'm doing now, kind of.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're working, well, you can describe it better than me, but one of the most world-renowned historical stately homes, is that the way to describe it?
That's the way I describe it, just because it's simpler, really, to explain it as that. I mean, most places say it's a Japanese garden, but there's also the house here as well. And to me, they're a set. As an English person, we have stately homes or country houses in the UK, and they're always a house and a garden as a set.
Right.
But in Japan, it just tends to be the garden that's explained. And that's not really true because this place is actually a house, or formerly what would be called a palace in Japanese, actually. And then a garden as well. So
Yeah.
I tend to call it a stately home, yeah.
It's really a big facility. I mean, you've got a glassworks
Yes,
manufacturer, you've got a tea house,
yeah.
you've got, please describe it. You know much better than me.
So we've got, I mean, it's a big site. If you the map that you've got up at the moment, to the
I'll bring it
right-hand
back.
side, where there's the kind of concentration of letters, that I think it's F on here.
Uh-huh.
This is the house. So this is the original residence that the Shimadzu family lived in. And it was built in 1658, and then renovated in the late 1800s when they moved to live here full time. So they lost control of the domain of Satsuma, which was their territory, when Japan modernized, and lost control of the castle. So they moved into Sengan-En as their main house, and lived there for about 10 years before moving to Tokyo, like all the other kind of daimyo families did. So that's the house here on the right-hand side. And then on the way in, we have a bunch of shops and restaurants, obviously because Sengan-En's, operated as a tourist attraction, somewhere that people can come and visit.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to eat and also buy some local souvenirs and things like that. And then towards the left-hand side, we have a museum. It's just off this picture, actually, to the left.
Mm-hmm.
The Shokoshu Seikan. And that describes the 800-year history of the Shimadzu family.
Mm-hmm.
Also the Meiji period industrial revolution that happened in Japan. And that was started here in Kagoshima, pretty much, here next to Sengan.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we have a glassworks where we produce Satsuma Kiriko, which is a kind of crystal glass that was produced in the late 1800s as part of this modernization project to try and bring Japan into the modern era and catch up with the world as well. Yeah. So it's a multifaceted site. From the right-hand side, you've got the kind of mid-1600s, and then on the left-hand side, you've got the late 1800s. So it sweeps that whole period of history.
Yeah, amazing. We've got our first comment. Allison says, "Hi, everyone. I visited last year during spring break, and it's beautiful. The garden, the shops, the history around it, and the view of Sakurajima." Thanks for joining, Allison.
Thank you very much. That's very happy to hear that.
That's awesome. I will talk about some of the Google reviews I saw of the place later on. But most people, of course, the biggest category is its history. So you say a lot of people probably go just for the gardens, but of course the biggest unique appeal is the history. Do you find it hard in your job to try to create appeal to the international market with history that's kind of hard to describe, hard to explain?
I mean, that's a big challenge always. The gardens themselves were originally designed just to be enjoyed as a garden. They weren't to be enjoyed as a museum or somewhere that describes the history behind them. You were supposed to just go there and enjoy the view of the volcano, the flowers in the garden, the rock formations and things like that. So the original way of enjoying the garden is just to go and enjoy it as a beautiful place. But obviously, because many historical figures were involved in this place, especially for the Japanese domestic market, there's a need to explain that history as well. So for foreign visitors that come here, you can either take the approach of saying, well, just enjoy it as it is, go in and look at it and, breathe in the atmosphere and feel like you're in Japan. Or if you're more interested in finding out about the culture and history of the region, we can kind of delve into that a little bit deeper. The problem
Yeah.
with Sengan-En is it spreads such a long period of history. It's hard to know where to start.
Yeah.
So most Japanese people know that historical, cultural background.
Yeah.
So they kind of got an idea of what it's like. And they've all seen like the tiger dramas, the NHK dramas with the samurai and everything like that. So they
Yeah.
can imagine more easily, right?
Yeah.
It's very hard
Well,
for us to imagine what it would
Well,
be like.
one of the reasons I found you and wanted to reach out to you is because I think how you're explaining traditional Japanese culture and heritage is so accessible. Like I'm showing a picture of your website right now, how
Mm-hmm.
you're explaining so much of the rich history and culture that you have at the State Home and Gardens and how you're doing it so well. I'm really
Thank you.
impressed. Is that all you? Is that all stuff you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, these are mainly, translations of original Japanese works that I've done or articles I've written based on historical events. We also have 7 historians here who work full time, on the history of the Shimadzu family and the Meiji period industrial restoration or whatever. And they provide information to me as well. Obviously, we can't use that as is because a lot of it requires background knowledge.
Uh-huh.
So I try to break it down into easily understandable sections.
Yeah.
And at the
I
moment, really
but
focusing
I
on
thought you did that really well. It's always a hurdle in tourism in Japan to how much Japanese words do you use, right?
yeah,
How,
yeah,
how much English words do you use? You have to have a balance because like we're in Hiroshima, quite often people can't even remember things that because we've lived here so long seem really natural to us.
yeah, yeah.
But it's so much Japanese coming in. It's really hard when it's not something you're familiar with, right?
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, I like to think of it now as, I mean, people used to do tourism. They might go abroad and buy a postcard or an item or something and take it back home, a souvenir, give it to their friends and family. And to me, there's been like a bit of a shift in the way that people travel. So it's less related on bringing back these kind of tacky tourist items and things like that. And now I like to think of it as, knowledge is a gift.
Yes.
That's a little present that you can give to somebody that they can then share with other people. And they can share it as many times as they want if they're interested in it. So those kind of little Japanese words and phrases, if you teach the meaning behind it and they're interested in it, they can say to somebody else, "Do you know what this means?
Yeah.
It means this, and that also works as marketing capital for you
For
as well."
sure, for sure.
So
I
win-win.
love this page that you have on Kagoshima wisdom.
All right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic, right? So can you introduce it?
So there's a document called the Jishinko Iroha Uta, which is a collection of 47 kind of precepts about how the samurai should live. And it was written by Shimazu Tadayoshi, who was a feudal lord here in the 1500s. And he was very much interested in Confucianism and Zen Buddhism, and also a little bit of kind of Taoism and things like that as well, I guess. And he compiled this kind of selection of knowledge together to teach his samurai how to live. And it's based on the traditional Japanese alphabet. So instead of, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or whatever, they used to say Iroha Niyoeto Chirinuruo. And it's like the, traditional way of arranging the characters. So all the samurai knew this, and each letter has one precept attached to it. So there are 47 of these, and a lot of them are very basic kind of knowledge, like really simple teachings. It's nothing too deep, but they do kind of reverberate, and they're quite easy to adapt into your life, or at least think about adapting into your life as well.
Yeah, I love this one. Do not let your lack of skill diminish your will to practice. Even dust, when piled up, becomes a mountain.
Yes, yeah, that's a good one.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic. But you know what? I can't read the kanji. So one thing I would suggest is maybe add the furigana for people who know a bit of Japanese or who are studying Japanese, and then we could read the Japanese too.
Yeah. No, I will do that.
Could you read the Japanese?
So, hold on, I can't really see it.
Can you see it?
I'll have to make it a bit larger.
Okay.
No, so I can't see the
Oh, you
characters
can't
at
see
all.
it? Let me make it full screen. Sorry, this is not a test. But
No, no,
anyway,
it's
it must sound really beautiful in Japanese.
well, it's kind of old Japanese as well. So
Oh,
even
okay, okay.
people now would read it and think, what does that mean?
Right. So it's like the kanji behind you.
So, heta zo tote waga to yurusu na keiko da ni tsumorebba chiri mo yama to koto no wa kana.
Wow. Yeah, and I think there's a great skill to translating inspiring messages or things like that into accessible English, right? It's not a literal translation. You have to judge what's going to work in English to give the same feeling, right? And I think your website demonstrates that you've done that really well. Allison's asking, what's the website link?
Oh,
It's
so you can find this on sengan.jp, senganen.jp, and there's a language switcher at the top right to turn it to English. And there's a section called Learn, which has a lot of different articles in. And I'll be adding lots more, articles to that as we go along. So I've got two more actually that a curator's passed to me today to translate.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And of course, you can link to the website from the Facebook page.
Sure, yeah, we're on the Facebook as well, Instagram. We also have Twitter, but Twitter's only in Japanese at the moment.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
Many
I couldn't find you on Twitter, but I found you on Instagram quite easily and was really happy to find your website.
Oh, great.
So well done, and it's a great balance, I think, of introducing traditional culture and tourism, type of typical tourism interests, and I think you've done it really well. It's not often that I see a facility in Japan that has such natural English, like engaging information and articles. So yeah, really well done. I'm
Thank
not,
you.
yeah, I mean it.
More to come, hopefully. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I'm also a big fan of your Secrets of Sengan-En series that you're doing on Facebook.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. It's
Well,
really, really cute and short little video snippets. Can
yeah.
you talk about one that you've done recently?
What do we do? So, Secrets of Sengan is just a really, really short video introduction to some of the spots around Sengan that people might not notice when they come for the first time. Some of the spots most Japanese people don't even know about. So, for example, there's a waterfall behind which there's a small Buddhist statue, which is hidden away at the back of the gardens. And actually, some of the staff that work here even didn't know about that. Because it is a very big property, and these kind of little things are hidden away in the corner.
No, I love
Um,
that. And
so
people love that. People, it's like, what do they call it? Easter eggs,
yeah,
where,
Easter, yeah, yeah.
right?
So if
That
you,
you have something secret that's not on the map, that's
yes,
not,
yeah.
on all the official information. People just
Oh, yeah,
love to know extra things, right?
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So again, knowledge is a gift. It's a little present for people to take away. If they meet somebody else who went to Sengan, they say, "Did you see the statue behind the waterfall?" I saw
Yeah,
it. Like
definitely, definitely. My father-in-law and mother-in-law, when they came from the UK and visited Japan, they took the Shinkansen all over Japan, and they went all the way to Kagoshima. I don't know if they went to the gardens, but they just collected all these little snippets of information. And when they told stories to people back in the UK, they love adding these little snippets that you
yeah.
can't find easily. So, that's definitely a part of creating international appeal. Well done.
Well, this is something I struggle with a lot with guides because the guides for the Japanese domestic market the customer already knows the historical background of what they're talking about. So they can just go, Shimadzu Akira lived here and he did this and that. But for the Western person who doesn't know who Akira was or the historical context in which he lived, it makes much more sense to say, look, on top of this gate, there are two Chinese lion dog things. One's got its mouth open, one has its mouth closed. So this is representing a and Un, which is the start and the end of the universe. And they can go to any temple or shrine around Japan and see that with like Nyozo outside temples or, on shrine gates and things like that as well. So knowledge that kind of can be used in many different places as opposed to being too specific.
Definitely.
Or if you're going to do that deep dive, at least provide the background as well.
Absolutely. And that really short, quick explanation about you'll always see two dragons or look like dragons, and one has the mouth open, one has the mouth closed, start and end of the universe, like you said. It's when I've done some guide training workshops as well, and I think a lot of trained, very good guides who have so much knowledge, they have trouble dumbing it down.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, they don't need the dates and the names. I know that's important, but you just need to connect with them, these little tidbits of information which they can remember and take with them and see, all over Japan.
Well, it's all about boiling. I think somebody in marketing, I can't remember who it was now. I've forgotten his name. He said communication is about simple, basic human truths.
Yes.
So you want to know what motivated somebody to make that. What was the thinking behind it? What was the person who made this thinking? How did it make them feel when they made it?
Yeah.
And you can't really get that through dates and figures and things like that. You need to get deeper into the human story.
Definitely.
And a lot of the Japanese guides are very good, very, very knowledgeable, but I think they feel the need that they've got to kind of check all the boxes and get all their information across.
Yeah.
And you can leave some out. It's okay to skip it. Talk about yourself instead, your daily life, who you are. People want to hear that,
Definitely. Yeah, your personal story, so important. And then even if you heard a story from somebody else, but it reverberated with you, it was meaningful to you, you can still retell somebody else's story. And
yeah, I think so.
I think that's important too. What we're talking about, I brought up a page from one of your Google reviews, and it's a part of your facility. And in English, it says, Shuseikan Reverberatory Furnace.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, this brings me back to an example of what I talk about when I do consulting with places like yours. So what the heck is a reverberatory furnace? Like, we don't need the literal translation. And this happens all the time in Google. Yeah. So I had to research this and find out, but it's where they made the cannons, right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So in Google, a really good tip is to go through all the titles and just have a simplified English version. You do so well on the website. So if you have time now when you're not open, maybe that could be one of the things you could do.
Yeah, I do review Google Maps on occasion, but the problem is because we have so many visitors that people create their own, what's it called? Places within the garden.
Yeah.
So on Google My Business, I have 40 registered properties just for Sengan-En, like 40 odd.
Yeah.
So every shop and restaurant somebody's created. So I have to go through deleting or modifying all of them. So it's a time-consuming job.
It is so time-consuming, but Google is the platform that TripAdvisor uses, that so many other websites will use. So anyway, just a little tip. Also, I'm sure managing the Google business, but just going through and liking everybody's comment that took time to upload photos and write a review, just liking it and then writing a reply. That's like Google Business 101, right?
Yeah.
But so few Japanese facilities do that. It's such a small point, but it can get you so much more loyalty in terms of customers coming back and telling their friends and everything.
True. Yeah. I'll get somebody on that. The problem is there's not many people that speak English that well. We do have staff that speak English, obviously, and some of the guides speak English to quite a good level. But I think as far as office work is concerned, there aren't that many people who speak English well enough to do business in English.
Right.
And that's a huge problem for regions, especially if you're dealing with, overseas travel agencies or,
TA.
One
of the nice things about Google, though, is it'll translate the comment into your language. So like this is a comment from a Korean traveler, and it automatically translates it for me into English. So you can have your staff get it translated into Japanese, and then they don't even have to comment on it if they don't want to, but even if they commented on it in Japanese, it would translate it to the user's language as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I love that, when people post their own photos and give their own insights, often that's trusted more than the official one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to encourage that for sure. I think you guys are doing so many amazing things. It'd be a shame not to get Google, like really doing Google the best you can.
Yeah. We'll have a look.
Yeah. That's not a criticism. You guys are doing more than enough. But that last review was on the jumbo mochi.
Yes.
You want to describe it? You guys did a great video on the jumbo mochi.
Yes, yeah, that was a while ago now. So jumbo mochi are basically kind of toasted rice cakes. So mochi is a pounded rice cake, and the very small. Jumbo doesn't mean big; it means kind of like it's taken from Chinese originally. So it's written with the characters for ryo, which is two, and bo, which is a stick, and in Chinese that's written as liang and bo, so Yambo, Rambo, Yambo, Jumbo. So it's not jumbo mochi like big size, but yeah, mochi on two sticks. So we skewer those mochi onto two bamboo sticks. They're toasted and then dipped in sweet soy or miso sauce, and then eaten like that. So they're a local delicacy from this region. Yeah,
and made fresh every day, right?
Oh, actually, most people think that we take the mochi as frozen and cook them, but we don't. We actually make them from mochi gome, the rice, every morning. So the staff get here like really early, like 7, get all of the rice processed and in the machine ready to go. And then it's out there and being cooked first thing in the morning.
That's
so
awesome.
Fresh every day. So definitely come and try them.
Yeah. And with the diversity of inbound travelers, is it vegan? I think usually it is, right? And is it gluten-free because it's made with rice flour?
I can't say if it's gluten-free or vegan or not, actually. I'm not sure.
But if you check that, and if you could add, on your information when you talk about this, if it's vegan and gluten-free, that's something that international travelers or international people now looking to travel in Japan in the future are thinking about.
So we have 3 restaurants here, and the Jumbo Mochi shop as well. So that's 4 places that serve food. 5 actually now. Sorry, we've got another one. We've got
you got kitchen, food truck, yeah.
So I'm positively working with them to include more things like vegan food, gluten-free, halal. If we have an order in advance, we can cater to any of those tastes. But we're working on menu options that we'll do that at any time.
That's
so
awesome.
If people just turn up at the gardens, they've got something that they can eat. So the first thing we're doing is providing information as to what's in each dish. So there's very detailed allergy information on every menu, and then we're going to work beyond that to products that work for other dietary requirements as well.
You've got a fantastic page on your Facebook page about food and shopping, and you've got videos and everything introducing. There's another picture here, another kind of wagashi maybe?
Yeah, so this is kintsuba. So it's actually a sweet potato, which has been kind of squished together, and then it's got rice flour on the outside, which is then kind of lightly toasted on all sides, and then they chop it in half, and you can, eat it away. So it's not too sweet, but it's a nice little snack. People like it here with a bit of green tea, in the afternoon.
Yeah, I love that.
Very photogenic because the purple sweet potato and the orange. And
it's beautiful. I mean, everything about your place is so aesthetically appealing, right? You've maintained this beautiful, high quality aesthetic appeal to everything you've done, and with the remodel as well. The remodel was massive. Can you explain a bit about the big remodel you guys did?
Sure. So Sengan-En's been open since 1949, I think. The museum, the Shoko Shusekan Museum, opened in 1922, so that was the first thing that opened. And then the Shimadzu family opened their gardens to the public in the late 1940s. And then the house was the last place to be opened. That was around the 1990s, I believe. I'll have to check that. But the gardens had never been renovated since 1949. So
Wow.
the kind of restaurants and the shop areas of the garden were, to be honest, a little bit kind of Showa looking,
Uh-huh.
a little bit kind of outdated. The Edo period gardens themselves have kind of remained the same, so they've been very, very good about keeping the historical authenticity of the traditional garden. So 2017, we started a project to renovate Sengan and bring it up to date. And took about 10 million US, I think, to do that, and a year's worth of work. So it was a huge project, and we did it all while the gardens were open as well. So we had to
I
close.
read that. I was amazed by that you could still keep all the gardens open while the construction's going on.
So this is generally because we don't touch the historical areas, so we could work around those and get people into the gardens by different routes and things like that. So I think we had to close for half a day just for one instance where we had to remove a large tree that was blocking a walkway. But apart from that, everything was carried out,
Wow.
during work hours. So, I mean, it just shows the efficiency of Japanese work.
Yeah.
Like that. Incredibly,
For sure.
detailed and on time. Yeah.
Yeah. We have our first big public transport being built in Hawaii. And
Right.
There's loads of Japanese people who have settled in Hawaii. We've got, second, third generation Japanese Americans. But they gave the contract not to a Japanese company, to an Italian company.
Really?
And so it's taken so long. And everybody's like, why didn't you give it to the Japanese company? They'll do it faster. So efficient, so fast.
Well, the thing with Japan is it takes a long time to make a decision, but once the decision's made, the work then follows on quickly.
Yeah.
The advantage we had, because we're a privately owned company, is that we could make the decision very quickly as well. So it didn't have to go around lots of different places for, confirmation and things like that. It worked out very well.
That's awesome. Yeah, well done with the big renovation, and what a big investment in the future of the facility. Fantastic. And it was the big renovation. It sounds like was one of the big reasons you guys may have won that International Travel and Tourism Award.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So we got nominated for an International Travel and Tourism Award, which is held at the World Travel Market in London, the WTM, every year, which is one of the world's biggest travel shows. So we were very happy to be nominated. We didn't expect to win. We actually got silver. We came second in the thing. So I went over to the award ceremony. We got announced and went up on stage. And this is a picture of the event itself on the day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think what they told us about the what they told us about the award was that they looked at the renovation of the gardens, obviously the before and after shots and the thinking behind it. But what for them, was the key element was the fact that we wanted to appeal to the people of Kagoshima, local people, and then obviously the people of Japan, and then tweak that so that the people from abroad would be interested in it as well.
Yep.
So if you go directly to promoting for people from foreign countries for inbound tourism only, you're likely to create something which is kind of fake, right? And it's like a tourist destination then.
Yep.
We really didn't want to do that. So we wanted to satisfy the local market, the domestic market, and then adjust that to fit with the overseas market's needs. So to keep that authenticity all the way through is, one of the biggest things that received praise for us, I think. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And you won with some very stiff competition. You had like Euro Disney's Nature Park, Spike Island, and Harry Potter in the same category. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, the Harry Potter one, I was really surprised we beat Warner Brothers. Yeah, and I was very happy to see that as well. I went to their booth at the WTM, and it was absolutely massive. It was as big as the Japan booth, the whole Japan booth, for the Harry Potter experience or whatever it was in London.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the travel industry is always looking for something that's new and interesting, and authenticity plays a big role now as well.
Yeah.
So these attractions are amazing, obviously, but at the same time, they want something that's got real deep roots. And real kind of meaning to it as well. So I'm, very happy that we got chosen for that.
That's fantastic. Really well done. Congratulations to your whole team.
Thank you very much.
One of the other things that you guys do is all your events. You want to talk about your events a little bit? You're personally very active in the Jigen-Ryu. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Yes, yeah. So one of the main reasons I came to Japan was because I was interested in the kind of traditional culture of the country, so especially kind of martial arts and things like that. So I practiced Iaido and Kendo in England, and then when I moved to Japan, I started a school of swordsmanship called Jigen-Ryu. So I've been practicing that for about 15 years now, quite regularly. And I was very lucky, actually, a couple of years ago to do a demonstration in front of the Crown Prince of Japan as well.
Wow.
So that was at the Kokumin Bunkasai, which is like a cultural festival that was held in Kagoshima.
Wow.
So that's been a really great highlight for me.
Yeah, it must have been fantastic.
Yeah, the picture you've got up there actually is the kind of basic practice in Jigen-Ryu, Tategiyuchi. So we strike a pole, tree trunk, which is buried in the ground normally, on either side to kind of toughen up the hands and body, and also mental prowess as well. So it's very involved. And this is local traditional culture in Kagoshima, which has kind of introduced me to other local cultural things as well.
I saw at your facility, I saw a video by a traveler who was visiting, and there is an area where you can pick up a stick and whack some other sticks.
That's correct, yeah. So that's one of the basic training in Jigen-Ryu is Tateguchi, so this striking the sticks and things like that. So you can actually try that out here as well if you want to do that at Sengan-En. So some people come along and do 2 or 3 or 4, but they don't do hundreds and hundreds, which is what's necessary. But yeah, it's good to get a little hands-on kind of experience there.
No, that's great. And then I read on the International Tourism and Travel Award website that one of the other reasons they gave you guys the award is because you had shown that after the renovations, you were able to increase the amount of visitors. In fact, you increased by 39% the visitors after the renovation?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So the renovation was timed along the same time as when the local tiger drama was filmed in Japan as well. So there was a tiger drama, like a national historical drama, which is on NHK every year. It was based in Kagoshima around the same year. So that accounted for a lot of the increase. But we also saw a big increase in overseas visitors as well during that period too. And
not only the number of visitors, I mean, just entry is only 1,000 yen, right? But,
yes, that's correct, yeah.
But it sounds like you increased your visitor spending by 31%.
That's true, yeah. So the kind of renovation of the shops and restaurants as well kind of fitted in with the theme of the gardens much better. And I think that was conducive to spending as well. So the shops and restaurants actually, it's kind of more of a modern Japanese look to them as well. So they are kind of quite chic, actually. But it does blend very well with the historical gardens as well. So I think that they match really, really well.
Well, I think that's hard to do, but it's really important. Alex Kerr often talks about that, right? You have to keep the traditional aesthetic, but you have to make it comfortable for the modern person.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
It's
so
do,
important.
It's very important. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to feel that kind of traditional vibe, but at the same time, they don't want to be horribly uncomfortable. So Alex actually came down here as well to have a look around the gardens once the renovation had been completed as well. He was very kind, with his words about it as well. So
that's wonderful. I'm hoping to do a live stream sometime with Alex and
Yes.
hear about all of his great initiatives
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and projects. Another really interesting thing is you started a self-guided tour and you
Mhm.
had a 385% increase in the amount of visitors using it. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
the
gosh.
house center of the gardens. Previously, it was like a 20-minute tour, so you had to go in and walk around the property with somebody wearing a kimono or whatever. They're very worried about people touching things
Yeah.
and damaging the environment or whatever, which is why they always had to have somebody with them. But I managed to convince the business that it would be better to have people freely walking around the property and then have guides stood around who
Yeah.
could just answer questions if people have them. Perhaps approach people if they want to, if they look like they're interested in something but don't quite want to ask a question themselves.
Yeah.
And because we did that, that allowed people to enter the house at any time, as opposed to these set 20-minute windows. And it proved very, very popular because we immediately got a load of posts on Instagram
Yeah.
of
Fantastic.
the interior of the house, people posing in the rooms. So we actually allowed them to go into certain rooms as well,
Right.
which wasn't before as well. So just a bit of flexibility,
Yep.
trusting the visitor,
That's
and also
that's one thing we often say when people are trying to attract more Western visitors, and they have all these no picture signs, and you
mm,
have to join a tour to go around. And we're like, listen, they're gonna do free publicity for you if you allow them to take pictures. Like
yeah.
no flash photography, sure, but let them take pictures. It's gonna be on Instagram. It's gonna be on Twitter. And then you'll get more people coming because that's the new modern reality, right, of tourism.
Well, I think you've got to trust people as well. I mean, there are people who will do things they're not supposed to do, but I don't think a sign saying "don't do this" is necessarily going to stop them.
Yeah.
And Japan's got a fascination with putting up, chuigaki like signs everywhere. You'll get. Oscar points this out quite regularly. You'll get
uh,
3 signs saying "tachiri kinshi," like "don't come in," next to each other. It's like you just need one, surely.
yeah.
Um, so I think a
No,
lot of it
like
is to get.
signage is one of the big things you did with the renovations, right? I mean,
Yeah,
signage is really hard to do nicely, keep
yeah.
the aesthetic appeal, but still be informative, right? Keeping that balance is so hard.
Yeah, so there was a company in Yokohama, I think, who did that for us, and they were very, very good. Extremely sensitive to the environment and creating kind of neutral signs using glass and neutral colors and things like that that didn't kind of wreck the background, but also provided enough information. So, I mean, Japanese design, it can either be incredibly good or terrible. There isn't really much middle ground for some reason.
Right.
Uh, and I think that's what irks a lot of foreign people when they come here is because they've got one image of it and it's so radically different.
And
Um,
it's hard to take the photos you want to take if there's all this signage waving on the periphery.
yeah.
I
I mean,
think,
it can have a place, like the kind of Showa retro type, Yokocho type vibe where it's a narrow alley with lots of neon signs
oh
and
yeah,
things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I mean, that's cool in its own right, but it's not cool in a Japanese garden. It
No.
doesn't belong. So just that sense of, time and place or whatever.
And that's a part of Japanese traditional aesthetic, right? Is the minimalism, the
Yeah.
clean lines. So to preserve that, it's a challenge because it seems like we should advertise our lunch special.
Well, the problem is, I mean, like that traditional aspect, minimalism, and like Channel U, the tea ceremony, all this kind of stuff. That was the culture of the elites. So that was the culture of 5% of the population or so. So you have the nobility and the samurai. So there was about 5 to 6% samurai in any one province or whatever. It was their culture really, and then the common classes, the merchants, the farmers, and things like that, have their own culture. And a lot of that is very colorful, uses a lot of, complicated designs with lots of motifs and things like that. So these two kind of clashing opposites exist within Japanese society still today.
Yeah.
And I think in the West, we've kind of concentrated in recent years probably on the kind of Zen type aesthetic, the minimalism. And everybody thinks that that's Japan, and it really isn't. You know, there's a huge other scope to Japanese culture, which is, you know, seen in that kind of Showa period, you know, chaotic signage and all that kind of stuff as well. That is a part of culture as well. So just realizing which is suitable in which environment is very important.
Right, yeah. Well, you guys have done it really well. Allison's asking for the name of the signage company in Yokohama you mentioned?
I can't really share that, I'm afraid.
Okay. Secret, insider. You got to work for the company to find out that kind of stuff.
Sorry, we have all kinds of contracts.
No, that's fine. So we talked about the jumbo mochi. Now, one other thing I was really interested in that you shared on your Facebook in your secrets series, I think, was the digital pay. That you guys at the truck, you're doing digital pay. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So we were quite quick in accommodating, you know, cashless payments and digital payments early on. So the food truck itself is entirely cashless, so there's no cash transactions at all. But all the other shops, we can use things like, you know, PayPay, WeChat Pay, Alipay, Line Pay. You know, there's so many of them these days. But you can use any of those to pay for things in the gardens as well. So, I mean, it's just for convenience for inbound customers and also for Japanese people as well now. So, yeah, I mean, I think we were the first place in Kagoshima, probably one of the first in Kyushu to get it done across the board, you know, across the whole place. And again, that's to do with the history of the Shimadzu family as well, because they've always been innovators, always been interested in new technology, bringing things in, adapting quickly, you know. And being a privately operated company, again, has allowed us to implement it really quickly.
That's fantastic. And when I lived in Kyushu many years ago, it was not somewhere that I would have expected the latest trends to take off. So well done.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that historically, this region was the gateway to Japan, really. I mean, trade with China happened through Kagoshima pretty much. Just because of the geological kind of formation of the place. There are a lot of bays and things like that which could be used for trade. You know, they had huge influence from China on local culture, you know, and the items that were brought into the country as well. So it was a much more international place than people realize. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Comment from Allison. She says, I actually really enjoyed that aspect of the self-guided tours, I think she's talking about, being welcomed into the house by the guides that were there. My daughter tried on an old kimono. Very, very friendly staff. We would not have joined a tour. So there you go. Validation that the self-guided is much more popular.
So that must have been the, what's it called? Uchikake. So there's like uchikake kimono that you can wear on top that was in the house for a little bit on display, yeah. But the people are really friendly here as well. Kagoshima people are so open, very interested in guests from abroad and things like that as well. Sometimes a little bit, what would you say, really? Almost kind of cute in the way that they approach people with questions and things like that. But quite a bit naive in a way, but also very, very open and friendly.
Like, can you use chopsticks? That kind of question? You mean?
Yeah, you do that kind of thing occasionally. Yeah. Do you drink shochu? Is more the
common. Right, yeah, because your Kyushu is more famous for shochu than sake, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's all imo shochu down here, sweet potato.
I noticed that picture of the digital pay. You've got a bottle. It looks like sake, but it's probably shochu from the food truck, huh?
Yeah, that's shochu. Yeah. So we had that in our. We have some storehouses in the gardens that used to keep the nagamochi, which are the long cases with all the clothes and things like that and bedding in. Used to keep them in there, and we aged some shochu in there for a couple of years, and that's on sale there. Yeah. So
shochu is I forget my Kyushu history here. Shochu is usually made from potatoes, or no?
You can make shochu from many different things. Actually, it's made from barley and rice as well. But in southern Kyushu, it's mainly made from sweet potatoes. And the interesting story behind this is that when the Shimadzu family were modernizing in the late 1800s, they wanted to make gunpowder. for cannons and guns and things like that to defend themselves. And to make gunpowder, you need large quantities of alcohol. So they couldn't use the staple food rice to create alcohol because it was a waste and people needed to eat it. So instead, they had lots of sweet potatoes. So they were like, well, let's just use these and make some alcohol instead.
That makes so much sense.
So the alcohol originally made from sweet potatoes, imo shochu, was for making gunpowder. And they adjusted it gradually into a drink that people could enjoy as well. So it's the original firewater, literal fire.
And talk about necessity and innovation, right? Like that's a perfect example.
Yeah. So no waste as well, right? So they're always thinking of new uses for different things too.
Yeah. So many things from the Edo area or way back in Japan is so sustainable, right? They reused, recycled, everything was protecting the environment. We need to get back to more of those kind of ideas.
That's true in some aspect, but there are some things that aren't so. So they did actually cut down a lot of trees as well, because obviously firewood was the main source of fuel. And things like, what do you call it? Furoshiki. So the napkin things that people wrap stuff in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because that's one of my biggest suggestions. Before we talk about that, we've got some comments on the shochu. Paul says, many memories lost to shochu in my Kyushu days.
I understand what you mean.
And the explanation of shochu was very interesting. Thank you. And shochu water was his favorite.
Right, okay, yeah. So there's a couple of ways of drinking shochu. So you can have oyuwari, which is with hot water, or mizuwari, which is with cold water, or on the rocks with ice. So it's best to probably do oyuwari because you can adjust the strength more easily if you're drinking with other people, because they put quite a bit in otherwise.
Yeah, at the drinking parties, I've never been a strong drinker, so I appreciated that about you could just have a tiny bit of shochu and mostly water. And then you could still take part in the ritual of the drinking party and not suffer too much the next day.
So you can usually say what percentage you want of each. So like gogo, like half and half, or nana-san, like 70-30.
Yeah.
Or just the smell maybe as well. Just put a drop in,
That's fantastic. So let's talk a bit about sustainability in your shops. So you've got your food and shopping section, and one of the comments I noticed on Google was that everything is super high quality, that people were really impressed, but of course some of the negative comments were as well too expensive. But I think stick with that quality, because that's part of your branding. Your image is keep everything high quality. So don't have those plastic trinkets, for sure. And this is from your Facebook page.
Yes.
Beautiful women in kimono doing shopping. I don't see any plastic bags. I live in hope that you guys have banned plastic bags, but I know the reality is probably not
working on
it.
Yeah, it's a long, protracted battle.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned furoshiki. And furoshiki is being used by Lush internationally. Lush is a UK company, and they're using furoshiki in all their shops around the world. And there's so few Japanese shops or businesses using furoshiki. This is beautiful Japanese culture. Let's bring it back.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I love furoshiki, the designs as well.
Oh, yeah. Cute. Gorgeous.
Dento gara, like the patterns and stuff.
And you pay a little bit more, but it's like an extra gift, right?
Yeah. Like a reusable eco bag, but you can fit it to any shape you want.
Absolutely.
I think learning to tie it as well is quite interesting as well.
So if you have staff and you have maybe plastic bags option, but you say, would you like to buy it in a furoshiki, and the staff wraps it for you? That's like added value, right? It's like an extra experience.
That would be very cool, actually. That would make a good little kind of short video for YouTube or
definitely. And
Instagram.
the thing that I love about furoshiki, which was a shock when it first happened, somebody gave me a gift in a beautiful furoshiki, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love the furoshiki!" And she's like, "I'm taking that one back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
mine." Like,
Yeah.
what? I don't keep it, So that's a part of Japanese culture that is kind of surprising. But you can keep your furoshiki. You just give it. It's like reusable wrapping paper. I love
That's,
that.
yeah. No, it's good. Yeah.
Another thing, reusable water bottles. Do you guys have a place people can refill on water while they're walking around?
Um, we have water taps around the garden, but not so much. No, that's probably something we need to work on actually. Yeah. So,
Do you know
refill.
My Mizu? I interviewed Robin years ago, who started the My Mizu app.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be in time for the Olympics to make sure people could refill their bottles, use less plastic waste. It'd be
Yeah.
great if you guys have a refilling service. So let's talk about the big elephant in the room right now, COVID. How the
Yes.
heck are you guys going to move on with business in the new reality of the coronavirus?
Well, I'll be totally frank, it's very tough at the moment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the tourism industry in Japan's been hit very, very hard by this. We first saw it with the visitors from, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, Korea disappearing.
Yeah.
And then we saw, as it picked up gradually, less and less European visitors as well. There were a few kind of stragglers who'd come to Japan for like a month-long holiday or something like that, finally made their way down to Kyushu. And when I spoke to those people, they were saying, we're concerned about flying home. Our flights have been cancelled. We don't know what to do to get back. But they didn't seem that panicky about it. They were all quite young.
Right.
But we just get a couple of extra days in Japan, maybe.
If you're stuck anywhere, Japan's a fairly good place, especially Kyushu. You've got open space. People can spread out.
Yeah. But then we decided, obviously, to close the gardens down for 2 months. So we're actually considering reopening at the end of this month, so on the 31st of May. But obviously, it's a day-to-day, decision to make.
Well, information's changing all the time.
Yes.
And I think we were talking a little bit about your events, but when you look at the event pictures, all the people walking in the parade in beautiful costume, all the people packing in to watch events. I mean, there's a lot of adjustments that, of course, are going to need to be made.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things we did with the renovation of the gardens was to accommodate more for FITs, the individual customers, rather than groups. So, for example, our biggest restaurant used to have a capacity of 500 people, and we reduced it to 250. This is before any of this COVID stuff, just to give individuals more space,
right,
to relax. So that actually probably works very well with things going forwards. Otherwise, events, obviously, we have to reduce the number of people that can attend, increase distance between people. We provide alcohol spray, masks, things like that as well. It's another possibility. But I think the whole tourism industry itself is going to see a shift towards smaller groups, less visitors, but higher spend, hopefully, and deeper experiences.
Yeah.
So instead of a tour with 30 people and somebody waving a flag at the front or whatever, maybe a smaller group of 5 or 6 people, and then a really deep dive into some aspect of the culture of the region, food maybe.
Yep. Quality over quantity, which is a trend that we should have been going into ages ago. So,
yeah.
The over-tourism problems in Japan with popular sites and attractions. Yeah. So it could be a really good thing.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds a little bit elitist perhaps, but I think you do kind of need to have you need to have almost earned the right to travel, in my eyes. If you're not going to look into a country before you go there and find out what it's about a little bit at least, or have an interest, then, to me, I don't really think that you have the right necessarily to go there and just kind of be a tourist. So I think, while it does sound a bit elitist to say that, I think it's very important that before people travel, they look into where they're going to.
Yep.
Look at the cultural norms there, the customs, how people live, what they eat, and then try and find out about it that way. And that provides a much greater experience for everybody involved, because the local people will feel more comfortable.
Absolutely.
The visitor will be able to understand more as well. So I think this kind of reduction in numbers that we're going to see from COVID, and probably flights becoming more expensive as well. I assume less people using cruise ships and things like that too.
Yeah.
Might end up being a shift in the right direction.
I think so. I think so. And, you have to prioritize, where do you really want to go, and invest in that travel, invest in that trip, not just go anywhere, snap the famous photos and go home with your souvenirs, but, travel should become more meaningful because it costs more, and you have to really plan for it. So hopefully that'll still benefit, like you said, locals. It'll still benefit economically. It'll still get the income. And the experience will be better because it'll be less people and more of a catered experience, right?
Yeah. So I think like we've got into this thing where we go to a destination, a site somewhere, and then taking the photo is like the closing action that we do before we go somewhere else. It's all leading up to that one point where we take a snap of somewhere, and then it's like, let's go to the next place.
Yeah.
And I think that could probably change a little bit somehow. I mean, taking photos, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. But if the whole purpose of a visit is literally to take a photo of something, I think it really missing out on something.
Yeah.
I was speaking to somebody the other day about the word kanko in Japanese. And I said, what do you think kanko means? What's the meaning behind it? Because the word for kanko is the word for to see or to watch with light. So literally the kanji for light. And he said, kanko to me means that there are these spots around which are like shining lights, and we must go and see them because these are tourist destinations. And I said, well, no, that's really not what I think it means. I spoke to a Buddhist monk about what he thought kanko meant, and he told me it's from a Buddhist phrase originally, which I didn't know. And he's saying that kanko means to see the light within yourself. So to see Sakurajima in front of you erupting, you see that the mountain is alive, that geology is moving around, and then you realize from seeing that experience and being moved by it that you're also alive as well. And to see that brightness and light within yourself is the real meaning of kanko. So to try and get back to that model instead of just going around all these places or whatever and taking a photo and trying to connect with like a real spiritual experience almost. I don't know.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think your travel should change you, should make you a better person, should help you engage with people who think and view the world in a different way. That's all very closely related to what you were saying in Buddhism, is it? That's amazing.
Yeah, he told me it was from Buddhism originally. I'm not sure which part of Buddhism it's from, but he was a Soto Zen monk, and he said, yes, kanko is originally a Buddhist phrase. So I was like,
that's awesome. I love that. What a great way to end our talk.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex, for giving us so much time.
No, my pleasure.
We have one last comment. Allison says, he's so knowledgeable. This is fascinating. So what a great way to end it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody for watching, and you can catch the repeats if you missed it live. You can catch the repeats soon on YouTube and Facebook. Join us again tomorrow when we talk to Rochelle Kopp about business etiquette and cross-cultural communication. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Talk to you again soon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.